I feel like we should have a funeral march playing in the background here, since it is technically the start of the end. Hello everybody, it's Katie here, and finally, Shadowhunters is back in our lives. So this is actually my first booktube video that I've filmed since we got the cancellation news about Shadowhunters. I haven't really been uploading over the past few months because basically my life went to shit. I won't bore you with the details, but I've had a pretty tough time over the last year and there has been a lot going on. So making videos just hasn't been a priority for me, which is why I have been so quiet. But this is, sadly, the final season of Shadowhunters. I don't think there will be any possible continuation of the show, at least not in the way that we know it, despite all of our efforts to save it. So these last few episodes will be it for us. So despite the fact that I have not been making videos for the past 8 months, I have been here since the very start of the Shadowhunters process, so I'm determined to be here until the very bitter end. I am hoping that this will give me motivation to make videos again, because I do miss making videos, I just haven't had the motivation in my life to actually make them. But enough about that, we are here to discuss the first episode in season 3B. This half of the season picks up where we left off in season 3A. We know that Clary has disappeared with Sebastian, but everyone else believes that she is dead. So let's start by discussing Clary and Sebastian. The show has gone with the whole strange Howl's Moving Castle type vibe that City of Lost Souls had, but this is Lilith's apartment and it has moved them to Siberia. Clary wakes up to find herself with this new Sebastian. Yeah, let's talk about that. Not entirely sure how I feel about the new Sebastian just yet. He's definitely got that creepy Sebastian aspect down, but I'm still not sure entirely how I feel about him, just because we all know how much I love Will Tudor. I'm a Will Tudor supremacist at this point. I was so happy when he was cast, so obviously I'm going to be devastated that he's not in it anymore. I'm still not entirely sure why they felt the need to switch them up. I understand that Jonathan looks different to Sebastian because Sebastian was never Jonathan. It's confusing, but you know, I understand it. I just wish there had have been a way to keep Will Tudor in the part. I'd gotten used to him as Sebastian and he was very good at playing him. So to see somebody else take on that role, it will take some getting used to. At the moment I think he looks intimidating, but I need to see more scenes with him before I can fully make up my mind. I don't know if I'm as intimidated by him as I was when Will Tudor was in the role, so we'll see. The relationship between him and Clary in this episode was very interesting because obviously Clary wasn't having any of the bullshit that he was spitting out. She couldn't care less about being in the middle of Siberia. She ran straight out that door the minute she had the chance. I've got to say it was a tiny bit dumb of Sebastian. One minute she was spouting insults at him, the next she was like, yeah, go on then, make me breakfast. And he just fell for it. He left her. Come on, obviously she was gonna run. So she runs through Siberia like a bad bitch, but obviously it is Siberia, it's freezing cold. She only had a tiny cape, so she collapses, he brings her back. As soon as she's well enough, she attempts taking his life. Not 1 ounce of hesitation, that knife goes straight through his chin. Of course, that is the moment when they realise that this mark Lilith has put on both of them to connect them. Connects them in a lot more ways than they originally thought. If Sebastian gets hurt, Clary gets hurt as well. This whole scene where she's standing there with the knife in his face, it was such a wonderful scene. I mean, it was gory as hell because they were both just, you know, bleeding out, but you can see that look of realisation on both of their faces. I just thought that that was one of the best scenes in this episode. Not the nicest of scenes, but definitely my favourite. I just really like the fact that it's Clary in the show. It's the same storyline as City of Lost Souls, but just with Clary instead of Jace, and to me that makes a lot more sense with them being actually siblings. I'm definitely interested to see more of her and Sebastian in the moving house. I am a little wary about the storyline and where it's going to go, because we know in the books it gets a lot more sinister to the point where Sebastian / Jonathan, I still call him Sebastian, I can never get into the habit of calling him Jonathan, but we know it gets to the point where he attacks her in, you know, an incesty way, and That made me so uncomfortable in the book, so I know if they do that in the show, I'm going to absolutely hate it. But I feel like maybe that's necessary because we need to know why he's such a horrible character. There's nothing redeemable about him, and when he starts doing things like that, it's at that point where you definitely know he's never going to be redeemed. So we need something like that, but I don't like it. So let's talk about Malik in this episode. Oh, they literally were the shining beacon of light. There was still pain and suffering there, I know, but you can always rely on them to give you some happy and light domestic moments, which is what they did this week. They got to babysit Madsy. I absolutely loved getting to see Madsy reunite with them. It was literally the cutest scene in the world. They just need to be parents already. They are perfect parental material. Of course, we couldn't keep the happy domestic Malik looking after a child thing going on for too long. The warlock that raised Madsy showed up and tried to steal her back. Can I just say that I absolutely hate this storyline of Magnus not having his magic? There was nothing more heartbreaking than that moment where he tried to defend Madsy with his magic and nothing happened. Like, obviously he spent centuries living with magic. It's as natural as breathing to him, so he automatically puts his hand out. His face! I hate this storyline so much. With him not having his magic, Alec doesn't want him to go on this mission, but Magnus is determined to help out. Of course, he ends up getting taken, and we have this scene where his memories get rifled through, which I absolutely loved because we're getting more little flashbacks about Magnus and this huge history that he has, and I just hope that means they're going to develop a lot on that this season. We can hope anyway. The one good thing about this storyline is that Magnus is now determined to learn how to fight so that he can defend himself without his magic. And I know that leads to Malik training scenes. That's the one good thing from this storyline, the one good thing that we deserve. So whilst I'm looking forward to seeing Magnus learn how to fight, I still don't like the storyline, and I'm not sure how long it's going to go on for. I'm not sure how long I can cope with it going on. Magnus without his magic just, it doesn't feel right. I did love the line though when he was having to do his eyeliner manually, when he said, "Tigers have stripes, I have eyeliner." I want that printed on a t-shirt. I don't even wear eyeliner anymore, but I want that printed on a t-shirt so I can wear it. Yet another iconic line from Mr. Magnus Bane. So poor Simon. I feel like every time I talk about Simon, I start the sentence with poor Simon. It's not even my fault, it's just the fact that he has put through so much shit. So in this episode, he is obviously feeling guilty because he feels like he is to blame for Clary's death because of the mark on his head. We have this horrible scene where he attempts to, I assume, cut the mark off himself. He's in the mirror with a knife and it just jumps out of his hand. That was such a devastating moment, and I absolutely hate seeing Simon like this. This poor boy cannot catch a break. We had Maya come back in this episode to find out everything that had happened since she'd been gone. Of course, she tries to convince Simon that it wasn't his fault, but he's not going to listen to reason at this point in time. He's grieving his best friend. She goes to see Izzy to ask for Izzy's help, and I absolutely loved this scene between them because the two of them both really care for Simon and they both want to help him, but it's pretty clear there is a tiny bit of tension between them, specifically when Izzy mentions that Maya wouldn't know what's happened with Simon and his family because she wasn't around for it. She doesn't say it with nasty intent, but it's pretty clear that she is hinting that Simon needed the people he loved around him. Maya is one of those people, but she wasn't there. We're in the very beginning stages of opening up Sizzy, and obviously Maya is going to be a big part of that given her relationship with Simon. So I am interested to see where the relationship between the three of them goes this season. Simon ends up going to see Raphael, who's working in a community centre. He's in a little kitchen handing out food to people. I love Raphael. I know he's been an absolute idiot, but Bless his heart. He tells Simon that there might be this super old vampire that might be able to give them some information on the Mark of Cain. No one knows exactly how old this vampire is or even where he is. Simon doesn't even know if he's real. I loved the use of the line, "Are all the legends true?" Such a clever way to just remind us of that fact. So it looks like Simon is going off on his own little adventure to track down this vampire. He assumed that Maya was going to come with him, but then she reminded him of the fact that she is a werewolf, so it probably wasn't a wise idea. The way she said, "unless you want me to," part of me felt like Maya, in that moment, wanted Simon to say, "I want you to come with me on this trip." I don't know, but that's just what it felt like to me. I am hoping that he doesn't go on this trip completely alone, because I am already stressed enough for him as it is, but I am interested to see how the story with the Mark of Cain unfolds in the show, because it is different to the books. It wasn't placed there by Clary. I'm looking forward to meeting this vampire, whoever he is. So I guess we'll see where that goes. So Jace in this episode is being very typical Jace, getting angry over everything, smashing things up. I mean, it is understandable. He thinks he's lost the love of his life. Thankfully, Alec manages to talk some sense into him and he pulls himself together a little bit more after that. He does end up going to pay a visit to Luke. When we didn't see Luke for so long in the first episode, I was kind of worried about him. They were showing everyone else but not Luke. Clary is like a daughter to him, so I really wanted to see how he was holding up after this. I was worried. When Jace goes to visit Luke, turns out he's not grieving like the rest of them. He has a whole wall of theories pointing to the fact that Clary is alive. And of course, Jace thinks that he's just going a little bit crazy because of the grief of losing Clary. And he does look like he's going off the rails a little bit, but we know he's not. We know he is actually completely right. Lilith's apartment did transport to somewhere else. Clary has survived. So we know Luke is right, but Jace is looking at him a bit like, okay. I'm very happy that Luke is the one who's convinced that she's alive though, because I'd have expected that to be Jace. Luke will solve everything. He's going to be the mastermind that brings Clary back because he's just that wonderful. That's about it that I can think of to talk about right now. Oh, the other thing that I wanted to mention, the sinister thing that's going on with Downwelders. Downwelder prisoners are reporting to Izzy during investigations that they are being tortured. Alec has a visit from the consul in this episode and she's determined that the Clave doesn't torture Downwelders, but you know, this is the Clave. The Clave is literally capable of anything and they are definitely not above torture. But when we got the scene of the Seelie towards the end of the episode being tortured, he was panicking and saying, "This isn't the god." So I'm trying to figure out if the Clave are sending them to another place to be tortured, or whether somebody else is getting hold of these prisoners. I'm not exactly sure where that's going, but that's a thing, and it's quite sinister, and I'm assuming we're going to find out more about it as the season unfolds. But I am excited to see where it all goes. There is a lot to look forward to in these final episodes that we should have got last year. I'm still furious. I'm not going to go into it again, otherwise I'll end up talking for another 5 hours, but I'm still so mad. I was saying this to my friend the other week. I am obviously very sad to see the show go, but I cannot wait to be done with Freeform. I don't think there is anything that they can do to make me want to support their network again in the future, no matter what shows they offer, because the way that they have handled this cancellation has just been so petty. And this isn't me just being a typical whiny fan of a show that's been cancelled. I just think that in certain aspects they have been really disrespectful. It reached a point where they actually mocked Shadowhunters fans. I think it was in an advert or something. They mocked the Save Shadowhunters campaign, which is ridiculous because even though this campaign is to get more episodes for the show, get another season, it's done so much more than that, and they just haven't acknowledged the good that it's done. Like, oh, I'm sorry, it must be so hard for you having a fan base for one of your shows that is so dedicated they raise money for charity. It must be so difficult having fans like that, right? I know that there are toxic parts of this fandom because there are toxic parts of any fandom, and I know that they are often a lot louder than the rest of us, but you shouldn't disregard the good that genuinely passionate fans have done, and you certainly shouldn't mock them for doing that. Yeah, I'm pretty excited to be done with Freeform after this show ends. They're not going to draw me in again. As always, there will be plenty of things that I have forgotten to mention, especially because this is the first time I've filmed a video in so long. I feel a bit lost. I need to get back into the flow of making videos again. So as always, if there is anything that you would like to discuss that I haven't mentioned, please feel free to leave it in the comments, or just in general, leave me your thoughts on this episode and where you think this final season is going to go. What are your theories? Tell me all the things. I hope you guys continue to join me each week as I discuss the show. It's so sad because I know that I'm not going to get to do this for much longer, so I'm just going to enjoy it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you again next week. Bye!